Greetings, fellow Zimbabweans and folk. I decided I want to do something that is relatively unorthodox, and that is obviously to comment about issues that are taking place in Zimbabwe, particularly, by the governing party. I'm not one used to maybe deal with issues that are taking place, within, the ZANU-PF party or any other party per se. But considering the last conference that was held by ZANU-PF in Mutare, the resolutions that were made there, and the aftermath of that conference, where a lot of people have, come up and are commenting on the Vision 2030 of President Mnangagwa and the change of presidential term limits, I realize that it will be injustice for me to keep quiet, because I believe that someone is taking someone for a fool, or someone is taking a lot of people for granted. Zimbabweans might be very quiet, maybe, but I don't think that that means that, really we are fools and we can be taken advantage of in such a manner. Now, if one has regards to, I think to what Professor Moya also said about the presidential term limits, one can only say that it does sound like he's really trying to pave his way for coming back into the country by saying things that are not true. It is his nature. He has always been like that, from time immemorial. He has been always very controversial and said things that are unlawful, and as a propagandist, he has always made sure that he tries to convince people to believe that which does not exist, to make it exist. And he's been very good at his work, and I suppose he might as well enjoy Kenya. It must be treating him fine. And I don't think he has any place in Zimbabwe, because the damage that has been done is largely because of him as a propaganda henchman, in the ZANU-PF government. Anyway, enough of that. I mean, ZANU-PF is a political party, and it is entitled to do things the way it does its things, just like Triple C, MDC, whatever, all the versions of MDC and opposition parties. They're all entitled to do what they want to do in the manner in which that they want to do it. And it is up to the people to believe and to be able to sieve and weigh and see that this is chaff, this is material, this is stuff, this is nonsense. And if people cannot see nonsense for what it is, and they can be misled into believing anything, then tough luck. So be it, because it's people that would have chosen that. Now, so what I want to talk about is, I've also seen that there are lawyers that have come to the fore that are basically giving views about sections 91, 95, and 328 of the Zimbabwean Constitution as amended. The relevance of section 91 and 95 is neither here nor there, but what is very relevant, and what I want to talk to, is section 328 of the Constitution, which talks about the amendment of the Constitution. I'm going to go through that Constitution so that we can go through it together, because the interpretation that I've heard so far really suggests something that is, an anomaly, and that is not written. It is not in the text of the Constitution, in my view. And in terms of, I think, understanding, basic, English. But I know that this is not our mother language, but your interpretation thereof is the one that, I'm hearing. I think it's suspect. Okay, let's go to section 328, subsection 1 reads, in this section, constitutional bill means a bill that seeks to amend this constitution. And then in brackets, term limit provision, it means a provision of this constitution which limits the length of time that a person may hold or occupy a public office. And this is what exactly we're dealing with, in line with Vision 2030. Subsection 2 says, an act of parliament that amends this constitution must do so in express terms. That is very clear. So we must not assume that a constitution has been amended, but it must be done in express terms. Subsection 3, a constitutional bill may not be presented in the Senate or the National Assembly in terms of section 131 unless the Speaker has given at least 90 days notice in the Gazette of the precise terms of the bill. Straightforward. Subsection 4, immediately after the Speaker has given notice of a constitutional bill in terms of subsection 3, Parliament must invite members of the public to express their views on the proposed bill in public meetings and through written submissions, and must convene meetings and provide facilities to enable the public to do so. It is very clear, once that proclamation has been done, and in terms of a gazette, then it means that what needs to happen next is that Parliament must make sure that people are convened in different places, public places, to bring forth their comments, and it must be a genuine process, that must then, ensure that people are allowed to make their contributions. Subsection 5 says a constitutional bill must be passed. It must be passed at its last reading in the National Assembly and the Senate by the affirmative votes of 2/3 of the membership of each house, so 2/3. And I think that's where we have had a lot of people talk about the fact that ZANU has got a 2/3 majority, so they're not worried about that. And a lot of commentators have basically said, the Songezo issue and the Triple CC were all meant to ensure that the 2/3 is going to be there so that it doesn't become a hassle or a hurdle at all. So that's a good thing. It's not a hurdle, that's done with. Now, most important is I want us to look at the next provision, that is subsection 6. Where Constitutional Bill seeks to amend any provision of Chapter 4, Chapter 16, Chapter 4, it talks about the Bill of Rights, their application and all that. And Chapter 16, it's about land in particular. Now, so paragraph A of subsection 6 says, within 3 months after it has been passed by the National Assembly and the Senate in accordance with subsection 5, it must be submitted to a national referendum. So that is what needs to happen in terms of that particular bill. That is the procedure. Basically, subsections 2, 3, and 4 are procedures that need to be followed, and 5 in particular that need to be followed in amending. So we need to be very clear that subsection 3, 4, and 5 deal with the procedure that needs to be followed in order for a bill to be passed that amends the Constitution. Now, so it must be submitted to a national referendum, and paragraph B says, if it is approved by a majority of the votes voting at the referendum, the Speaker of the National Assembly must cause it to be submitted without delay to the President, who must assent to and sign it forthwith. That is the procedure again, in terms of what happens after the passing of that bill in Parliament, the issue of the national referendum, and the majority is not 2/3, I suppose it's 50 plus 1, so once that is achieved of the people that are voting, and that's a very issue. I mean, I'm not sure how the people that crafted this constitution went with that. The majority of the people that are voting, so okay, fine. I mean, I suppose the majority, there's just like in, as well as in, it's not really entrenched strongly to protect it, but that is what it is. That is what our constitution says. So it requires that it must then be, assented to and signed by the President. Now, what is very interesting now is that let's move to subsection 7, which is very, very important and relates to this particular, amendment. Subsection 7, notwithstanding any other provision of this section, an amendment to a term limit provision, the effect of which is to extend the length of time that a person may hold or occupy any public office, it does not apply in relation to any person who held or occupied that office or an equivalent office at any time before the amendment. Now, I know that people that are trying to mislead other people will try to come up with a very funny definition. President Mnangagwa held this position before the amendment took place. So he is a president, which happened prior to the amendment. The amendment is taking place while he still already is the president, which means after he has already been elected the president. So this term change will not affect, it does not apply to him. His term limits still remain 5 years. It is only people that are going to be elected after the amendment has taken place that will be affected by that amendment. I mean, of course, I find it very weird. I don't know if it is the thought of the people of Zimbabwe. I doubt it is that we need to change term limits to 7 years. We are very happy with 5 years. In fact, we should have 4. Now, if somebody is a president and fails, to do whatever that they need to do within their term limits, why would we want them to take another term limit and some more time to complete that? They won't. I mean, we all end up dying here on earth without finishing what we want to achieve because we've got limited time. So in that regard, the 16 million Zimbabwean people are capable of being changed, voting other people to come and try and leave. So everybody needs to put their hand on the deck, try what they can, and if they fail, they fail. That's just about it. We can't have a situation where now term limits have got to be changed in order to suit somebody else. This is where we came from. This is a very new constitution, which already has been mutilated, by the way, quite a number of times. And we may not continue to do the same thing at this particular stage. So this needs to be stopped. And we need to make sure it doesn't really happen. And in this particular case, even if it happens, if it's the will of the people, unfortunately, this does not benefit President Mnangagwa. I know that the same thing almost happened, is what happened with Chief Justice Malaba. That was a mutilation, of our constitution. It cannot continue to happen that way. it is unlawful, it may not be allowed to continue to be done. So in this particular regard, we need to be very clear that if there is a change in the term limits, it does not benefit President Mugabe. President Mnangagwa, by the way, sorry. May President Mugabe so rest in peace. Now, so that's the first important issue that we want to be looking at there. Let's go then to subsection 8, which says subsection 6 and 7, get that very clearly, must not both be amended in the same constitutional bill, nor may amendments to both those subsections be put to the people in the same referendum. So if you look at subsection 6 and 7, subsection 6 is particularly talking to chapters 4 and 16 and sub 7, and section 77, for example, subsection 7 is talking to presidential term limits. And whilst we're still talking about, these term limits and that, it then continues, says, now, subsection 7 has brought in the issue of term limits, and it also continues to talk about it in subsection 8, where it talks about, term limits, and, chapter 4 and 16. It then proceeds to say in subsection 9, this section, which section is this? So that's definitely section 7, which is talking about the presidential term limits, or the term limits, not necessarily presidential. This section may be amended only by following the procedures set out in subsections 3, 4, 5, and 6, as if this section were contained in chapter 4. So naysayers that are saying there's no referendum needed need to think about it again. This is not the text of the Constitution. So if you're dealing with the presidential term limits, or any term limits, for example, they've got to follow chapter 4. That is what is clearly said by sections 3, 4, 5, and 6. And 6 in particular, gives you that, that's what happens in terms of chapter, of chapters 4 and 16. So if people have been going about saying that, the change of term limits does not need a referendum, they need to rethink that again. So yes, we need not to mislead the people. A referendum is required if there's going to be presidential term limit changes, in order to suit, whoever that needs to be suited, to be fit in, or to be, accommodated. But unfortunately, you need to underline that, and capitalize it, embolden it, and put italics, and put caption, shadows, whatever it is that you want to think about it. It may not benefit President Mnangagwa, because he has held this office before that amendment comes into place. So it means whatever amendment that is changed, it is for the benefit of the person that's going to be elected after the amendment has actually been done. So only people that will enjoy the benefits of the amendment, if they are to be enjoyed, and if we really want that, are those people that will be elected, after the amendment has been done, not people that, have held this office before the amendment has been done. So I want to invite you, fellow Zimbabweans, and fellow constitution leads, and, follow, fellow countrymen, that we may not allow, and we may not be seen to be, complicit in this mutilation of the Constitution that was suggested at the ZANU-PF Congress, and the people that have been going out, misleading people, telling them that this is what needs to happen. They need to know that it cannot happen. It's not provided for in the Constitution, and there is no other meaning in this Constitution, in the text that I've just read, that implies otherwise. So in that particular regard, I think we need to understand that we are not going to, be living as a people that does not have a constitution, despite the fact that it has been already, mutilated quite a number of times, and unconstitutionally changed for no reason, and all that. We may not allow that to continue happening. We need to make sure that, we are on guard, and we protect our constitution, so that our rights and the rights of our, future generations are all going to be secured, and we may set a good trend, a trend that ensures that people respect the constitution. And if your term is done, it's kaput. You just go to rest. I think it is right.